We felt like it was, probably the next best step for me to, kind of take the reins. I think the fighting's probably more difficult to articulate because we were doing something different. I took a lot of swings, creatively, and pulling from non-traditional inspiration, from anime and Japanese animation and that culture and the fighting. I wanted each fight to be different, building up to that, surrealism, fantasy rounds that I had to slowly introduce things, from the first fight to the second fight. So by the time we got there, the audience would accept it. So I think that was the challenging thing because, telling everybody, yo, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this fight, we're gonna remove everybody from this, the stadium. We're gonna put these jail bars in there. We're gonna have them go through their past childhood trauma. They looking at me like, and I was like, just believe me, trust me, we're gonna get it. So I think that was probably the most challenging and the most rewarding thing was getting the fights. I spent the last 7 years of my life living out my wildest dreams. It started to be a conversation around Creed 2, like right around Creed 2. As soon as the movie's almost over, you're kind of thinking about like what's next, where do you want to see the story go? It's a kind of natural thought process. And talking to Erwin, and other producers and myself and Ryan, we felt like it was, probably the next best step for me to, kind of take the reins. Hey, my man, can I help you?
You don't remember me, huh?
Damien. The idea behind, bonds and relationships and friendships and where Adonis was in his life, I think it was the best way for us to tell an origin story and a trilogy and a sequel all in one. We had to go back to the past, those transformative years, when you're a child, those friendships, those relationships, the first time you discover pain, who protected you, where'd you learn how to fight? A lot of different things made sense, and it just became inevitable that that was the best way to tell Adonis' story moving forward. We would have to go back and what he was like when he was younger and the people that were around. And it felt like the perfect vehicle for a conflict, but also, masculinity, toxic masculinity as a man. What did it look like to talk about your feelings, talk about your emotions? And sometimes, it doesn't mean you're weak. Doesn't mean you're less of a man. If you talk about, those things. And we wanted to show Adonis go through that on screen.
No, we past talking.
Then maybe you just have to find him.
Time. I think just time management, and communication. Having to communicate with all the department heads and learning how to listen in a real way was a big challenge, and just the time to prepare physically, mentally, shot list, creatively, just the amount of things that everybody's asking you questions, and you had to have answers to it. And sometimes you don't, and sometimes you figure it out. But I think time was probably the biggest challenge.